Okay, so you've definitely heard the name Berkshire Hathaway, right? And of course, the legend himself, Warren Buffett. But I bet you don't know the truly wild story behind its stock price. It's kind of unbelievable. So let's get into it. What is going on here?
Yeah, this is it. This is the heart of the mystery. Back in May of 2019, one single share of Berkshire Hathaway's Class A stock would have cost you over $300,000. No, that's not a typo. For one share. Just one. So, the question we all have is how? How in the world does one share of stock get to be more expensive than, I don't know, a house? Well, believe me, it was no accident. It's all part of a fascinating story. And that story, it starts somewhere you would absolutely never guess. Seriously, forget about Wall Street for a second. We're going to start in a totally different industry, one that was actually failing at the time. So get this, Berkshire Hathaway actually started out as a couple of textile companies way back in the late 1800s. They eventually merged in 1955, but the real story, the one we care about, kicks off in 1965. That's when this young guy, Warren Buffett, steps in. He takes control, takes one look at the textile business and goes, yeah, this is doomed. And he makes a huge call. By 1985, poof, the entire original business was just gone.
And that was the first massive, game-changing move. See, Buffett didn't even try to save the dying textile mill. Nope. Instead, he used its corporate shell as a kind of launch pad. He turned it into what we call a holding company, which is basically just a parent company that goes out and buys other companies. And he just completely pivoted into the world of investing.
All right, so this wasn't just some random shot in the dark. Buffett had a plan, a real blueprint. And that blueprint would go on to become one of the most successful investment strategies, like ever. So let's dig into how he pulled it off. Okay, so the core strategy. On the surface, it sounds pretty simple, right? Find good companies that are being sold for less than they're worth and buy them. But here's the genius part of the plan. Once he bought a company, he didn't swoop in and change everything. He trusted the people who were already running the place to keep running it. He focused on safe, established, reliable businesses. The goal was to build a portfolio that was just absolutely rock solid.
And when you look at the portfolio, wow, the diversity is just mind-blowing. I mean, you've got Geico Insurance over here, Coca-Cola over there, a massive railway company like BNSF, and even Fruit of the Loom underwear and Apple. It's like they're all in completely different worlds. And by doing that, by investing in these huge, stable companies across so many different sectors, he drastically cut down the risk and basically guaranteed steady, reliable growth.
Okay, so Buffett's got the strategy down, but to keep that machine growing at such an insane pace for decades, he needed fuel, a lot of fuel. And it turns out Berkshire Hathaway had a kind of secret weapon, a financial engine that most companies could only dream of.
And that secret weapon has a name. It's called insurance float. It's actually a pretty simple idea when you break it down. Think about it. When you pay your car insurance premium to Geico, they don't have to pay that money out right away for an accident, right? They get to hold on to your cash for a while. Well, that giant pool of cash from everyone's premiums, that's the float. And Berkshire gets to invest all of that money for its own profit before it ever has to pay out claims. It's basically a massive, interest-free loan.
And the scale of this float it's just hard to wrap your head around. A generation ago, it was about $2 billion, which is already a lot of money. But today, we're talking over $100 billion. That is a truly staggering amount of cash just sitting there, ready to be used to buy more companies.
You want a perfect example of how this works in the real world? Let's talk about Fruit of the Loom. Back in 2002, the company was on the brink of death. Its stock had lost something like 97% of its value. It was a disaster. So Berkshire Hathaway swoops in, uses just a tiny little piece of that giant float to buy the entire company and turns it around completely, back into a market leader. That right there, that's the secret fuel in action. But wait, there's a second part to this growth engine. And it's a bit of a paradox. See, Buffett absolutely loves investing in companies that pay out dividends to their shareholders. But Berkshire Hathaway itself, it almost never does. In fact, it's only happened one time, ever, way back in 1967. And Buffett's joke about it is legendary. He says he must have been in the bathroom when they authorized it. And here's why that's so incredibly important. By not paying out dividends, every single dollar of profit stays inside the company. And what do they do with it? They use it to buy more businesses. This creates this insane compounding effect. It's like a snowball rolling downhill, getting bigger and bigger and faster year after year. Okay, so let's put the pieces together. We've got a brilliant strategy,
this massive pile of cash from the insurance float, and a strict rule to reinvest every single penny. That all explains how Berkshire Hathaway became so valuable, right? But it still doesn't answer our original question. Why is one single share so ridiculously expensive?
Well, to get that, you have to get inside Warren Buffett's head and ask, who does he want owning a stock? And more importantly, who does he not want? He's actively trying to push away the day traders. You know, the people who are just looking to make a quick buck, jumping in and out, and making the price go all over the place. What he wants partners. People who trust the company's vision and are ready to be in it for the long haul.
And that is the answer. The crazy high share price, it's not a bug, it's a future. It's a filter. It's a gatekeeper. They keep the price high on purpose to weed out all that short-term speculation. It's designed to attract only the most dedicated long-term investors. I mean, think about it. When a stock costs hundreds of thousands of dollars, you don't just casually click buy or sell. It becomes a major, well-thought-out decision. It forces you to think like an owner, not a gambler.
Now, you might be thinking, wait, don't they have a cheaper stock? And you're right, they do. They eventually created a Class B stock that's way more affordable. But the reason they did it is really interesting. It was basically a defensive move. They created it to stop big investment funds from chopping up the main Class A stock into tiny little slices and selling those. Because if they did that, it would totally defeat the whole purpose of having a high-priced stock in the first place.
And really, you can't talk about this company without talking about the man himself, because the company's entire philosophy is a reflection of him. What's so amazing is the huge, huge difference between the insane amount of wealth he's created and how he actually chooses to live.
Let's start with his salary, for example. We're talking about one of the wealthiest human beings on the planet. And his official salary from Berkshire Hathaway? $100,000. That's it.
Okay, what about his house? Maybe he's got a mega mansion, right? Nope. He still lives in the exact same house in Omaha, Nebraska that he bought all the way back in 1958 for $31,500.
The man is literally a billionaire who drives a used car, famously grabs breakfast at McDonald's, and has promised to give away almost all of his massive fortune to charity. He lives and breathes his own philosophy. It's the perfect example of focusing on real, long-term value instead of short-term flashiness.
So when you put it all together, it leaves you with a really big question to think about. We live in a world that is just obsessed with quick wins, right? Fast trades, short-term gains. So is it possible that this incredibly disciplined, patient approach, this model where investors aren't just speculators, but are treated like true partners on a long journey, is that actually the ultimate way to build wealth?